Cool, everybody, we'll get started. It is my pleasure to introduce Mary Albrecht. She's with CBI. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Albrecht, and I have worked for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for about 5 years as a crime scene analyst. And prior to that, I was with the Denver Police Department for about 4 years, also as a crime scene analyst. So I'm here to talk to you today about basic documentation, photography documentation of your animal abuse scenes that you guys will be going on. I know it says first responder, but this is a course that we teach to like new baby police officers. So it correlates for what we need to teach you guys as well. So the reasons that we photograph and why it's one of the most important things. Oh yeah. I'm not used to being on a mic. Speak close. Okay. Our reasons to photograph crime scenes and animal abuse cases in general is to help establish and record the condition of the evidence as we see it, the condition of the house, the ranch, wherever we are, and it shows the spatial relationship of all the evidence in relation to other parts of the residence. We can document any fragile evidence. We can help with further analysis in the future. And it's one of the most minimally intrusive things you do at a crime scene, because one of the biggest things that we want to do is maintain scene security and prevent cross-contamination as best we can. We can then share the photographs with whoever needs it. It's super easy. Obviously, nowadays, you don't have to print out film and stuff like that. At crime scenes, there are 4 basic ways that we document them. That's through photography, videography, notes, and diagrams. And at the end of this presentation, I have a short little case presentation where I did do photography and video specific to the animal abuse case. The video was far too long, so I just show you some of the photographs that I took. But notes and diagrams are also of utmost importance when on scene. So if where dogs or cats or horses or whatever are located on the ranch or in the house is important, it's important to document that and diagram that. And all of this together aids in creating your report on the back end of everything. It's also really helpful in testimony. I don't know how many of you will end up testifying ever to these types of cases, but it's good to have a copy about everything you've done for your case so that you can refresh your memory, so when you're on the stand, you don't look like a ding-dong not knowing what you're doing. It's a way to reduce bias because the photographs that we take will accurately represent the scene, and they can be more probative than prejudicial. The more properly composed photos can convey information with very little bias. It can prove or disprove testimony, so it can help prove a point in a dispute, show where the location of evidence is, and confirm a witness viewpoint. We have a couple rules that we always follow when taking photographs. We fill the frame, we keep the film plane parallel, use a flash, and use a scale. And I will go into detail on each of them. So filling the frame is essentially what it sounds like. You fill the entire frame, left to right, top to bottom, with the entire item of evidence or whatever it is that you're trying to document. You don't want to have any space, any kind of open space in your image. Here's just another example of the first photograph was a shoe impression, the second one was a latent print photograph. Using a flash, so we will use bounce flash so that if the photograph on the left there, it shows you using direct flash on the individual. On the photograph on the right is using bounce flash. It just illuminates the scene better and gives you proper awareness of what the scene looked like. Outdoors, the flash can be really helpful because on the left photograph, you can't tell that there is a firearm underneath that car or in front of the bumper of the car. But when you add a direct flash, it illuminates that gun and you can see where that gun is located. Sorry, I didn't, I thought that was taken out already. That's my bad. I'll just skip through if there are any more. I hope not. I hope I caught them all. Anyway, so actually, let me just make sure. Sorry.
They always like the comic relief. It's all good.
Okay. I completely thought that I took all those out.
You know, we look at pictures of dead animals.
I know, and I figured I meant to do a. I meant to do a trigger warning before.
No, I'm assuming that's not a real dead person, or is it?
It is.
Oh,
Yes.
well, we'll tell them it was an actress.
Yeah.
So they're fine. They're cops. They're used to this.
Just take all of this out.
One nice thing about this crowd is that they're extremely flexible, and they love finding things funny.
All right. There we go.
All right.
Should be good.
Good job. Hey, that was faster than I could have done it.
I-
I would have been fumbling with it for an hour.
Oh, come on. Don't start me at the beginning. All right.
There you go.
All right, sorry guys. I should have added, I typically add a trigger warning at the beginning, just because we do typically show pictures of crime scenes when we are doing this class. I thought that I'd taken them all out prior, so I do apologize for that. Anyway, so back to everything, all the regularly scheduled things we're supposed to be talking about. So the next cardinal rule is keeping your film plane parallel. And it's really important for your comparison quality images or anything where size it matters. So when you are doing injuries, if you're documenting injuries to an animal or to a human or whatever, this is where that cardinal rule comes into most importantly. It reduces and eliminates perspective distortion. I'm sure everybody has seen pictures like this where you're either trying to pinch the pencil or hold it or whatever. That's considered perspective distortion, and we want to eliminate that. Tripods are really helpful for that. A lot of times though, how many of you actually use DSLR cameras or have them? So not too many. Most of you are going to use your cell phone if you need to, I assume. Okay, that's where we're going. That's where everybody's moving towards anyway. When we are taking photographs of any sort of injuries and stuff like that, we want to use an ABFO ruler. That's the little L on the top right, and the lower ones, those are just for bigger things that you need to scale out. If there's a weapon on the ground that you need to document or something like that. We do not recommend using any common household items. You're just introducing stuff into your crime scene that shouldn't be there, and that is not what you ever want to do when you're on a crime scene. The different types of photographs that we want to take are called overall, mid-range, and close-up. We want to tell a story with the photographs that we are taking, and the way that we do that is by walking through a path of the house or ranch or wherever you are. Walking through and just making sure that your viewer knows basically where your body position is within that photograph. So you can, for our purposes, for crime scene, we will do overall, mid-range, and close-up photographs with and without markers. And that is just because we want to document the scene before anybody touches anything or moves anything or adds anything to it. When you lay a marker down, you are inherently adding to the crime scene. So you want to document it as is before anything is manipulated within that crime scene. You always want to be consistent in your approach to take your overall photographs. And so I've always done pretty much the same way. I go counterclockwise in a room, so I know my first image where I am in that room no matter what, unless there's some reason for me to go out of order. And with scales, you're going to want to take the same types of photographs with and without a scale, just to show if size is important for the item that you're documenting. Doing a room-by-room approach minimizes your travel in the scene. So if you've got a house with 6 bedrooms, start with 1 bedroom, do everything that you need to in there, and then move to the next one. Don't hop from one to the other, because it's very hard for the viewer on the back end to understand what they're looking at. It's a lot, if you have a ton of rooms that you're trying to go through, or a ton of stables, one thing that I would recommend is once you've taken all of your overall photographs, go ahead and label them. So you can identify them later, because a lot of times, I show you in the case presentation, we actually labeled kennels because we needed to document which dogs were coming from which kennel area. Alternatively, though, you can work your way through the scene doing all of your overall photographs, then go back and do mid-range and close-ups in each individual room. A lot of times, when you go to really major scenes, splitting up the work is more hands make less work. So having multiple photographers can be helpful. If you want to have one person that's focusing on the human aspect of your case, whether that's gaining suspect information or documenting anything in a house that the suspect's been using to abuse the animals, and then somebody else could be documenting the actual injuries to the animal themselves. That way you get things done a little bit quicker, and each person has their own designated job. For overall photographs, typically I recommend using a corner-to-corner approach. It's basically what it sounds like. You'll place your body in a corner of the room, snap a photograph, move to the next corner, and snap another photograph until you get 360 degrees around the room. Occasionally, you can't get the entire image in one photograph, so you will have to separate, and that is okay as long as your photographs overlap from one to the other. Mid-range photographs, they help establish the items of evidence and their spatial relationship within the scene. So typically, I recommend using a fixed object within your scene to be next to your item of evidence or whatever you're trying to document, just to show the relationship that it has within the scene. So if I was documenting that piano, I would want to get at least a partial section of that door frame in my photograph, just to show the general reference of how far away that piano is from the door. We want this image to be taken at eye level, and you can either do it between your rooms or one room at a time, but we still want to fill the frame, and we still want to do photographs with and without markers. Close-up photographs, this is after your mid-range. There are 3 different types. In situ, that's as found, that's with no markers, nothing. You haven't done anything to your crime scene yet. So this is prior to collecting, this is prior to moving anything. With marker and scale is the next one. That's just what it sounds like. You're placing an identifier card down to identify the item of evidence in your photograph. And the last one is altered. That's when you are physically moving the item from the position that it was in to show another side of it. So if it's a firearm, you are going to photograph the firearm on the ground as is, and then with the marker, you'll then take the firearm and flip it, but you want to change the background so that the viewer knows that you have moved that firearm to a different location. Comparison quality close-ups can be considered a 4th type of your close-ups. That typically involves like latent prints and footwear impressions. And in addition to the standard close-up requirements, these photographs have to be taken in an uncompressed file format, which actually some of our phones are capable of doing now. And we have done a couple studies showing that the cell phones can take just as good digital photographs as a DSLR camera. So I'm just going to show you in general how to photograph vehicles. This is going to be, I know that does not relate to animal abuse. Unfortunately, I don't have a ton of animal abuse specific casework, but this is the same concept that I want you to understand. When you're in a house, when you're documenting an animal or a human, it's the same exact concept. So you're going to want to take your overall photographs of all the sides of whatever it is you're photographing. So in this case, all 4 sides of the car. Any sort of identifying information on that car. So if you're photographing a person, get any sort of tattoos that they have on, any jewelry that they're wearing. If it's a dog or an animal with a collar, get a close-up of the collar, a close-up of the tag. Things that can identify that particular person or animal or whatever it is that you're collecting later. Then you're going to work your way into a more intrusive situation. So this is where if you're going into the bedrooms of a house, you're not just photographing the outside of the house, now you're working your way in. Same thing here, you're working your way into the car. So you're showing the path or your movement within the house or within your crime scene. And then as you go through, you're just going to document each compartment. So like a vehicle has a front passenger seat, a rear passenger seat. It's similar to having a master bedroom, a spare bedroom, an office. You're going to want to document each room in its entirety. And you're still not moving anything, so I want to be clear. This is still just documenting as you're finding it. Eventually, you will start pulling things out, and you will start marking and collecting items of evidence. You will open compartments. So this is one of the final steps before marking items of evidence. I'll start opening up drawers or refrigerators or cabinets or things like that and just document what's inside. So if you need to document whether or not an animal has an adequate amount of food or just the general condition of their inhabitant area, this is the next step before marking things to start collecting. Oops. So then after, if I need to start going through the bedrooms or the cabinets or something like that, I will lay out a piece of butcher paper and spread out everything that I'm finding in that particular area and designate it. So as you can see here in this photograph, driver's seat, this is everything from the driver's seat. And then from there, if there's something that I want, so in this case, I want those keys. I'm going to separate those out and get a close-up photograph of that. Same thing for as you go through the entire car, as you go through the entire house. It's the same standard process and procedure. So in this case, I wanted the Cheetos, so I'm going to do a close-up, and you can see that they added scale there. So during and after scene processing, should we delete photos on scene? It depends on your guys' SOPs. But for us, no. I can take as many blurry photographs as I want until I get the correct one to show to the jury down the line. There's no reason for me to delete it. Everybody takes a bad photo. Sometimes, you'll be fat fingering your phone and you accidentally snap a photo and you're like, when did I take that? I don't remember that. Should you delete photographs? So long story short is follow your SOP. If you guys are allowed to delete photos, great. But after you get them back to your office and you've downloaded all those photos, absolutely do not delete them. Because your shutter on your phone, on your camera, it has a click counter or a shutter release counter. So it is every time you take a photograph, that photograph is assigned a shutter number. So if you take your digital images back, say they're images 1 through 10, and then you're like, oh, 5 is really blurry, let me delete that. Then all you have is images 1 through 4 and images 6 through 10. So it is very, very obvious that number 5 is missing. So in that regard, that's just how I would recommend handling all your images on the back end. Archive your photos immediately, however that works best for you guys. We kind of have a good, better, best type of situation here. We use validated software. We also have servers that we upload our photos to just so that they're in multiple locations. Just in case one crashes, we still have copies of photographs somewhere else. So that is the quick and dirty on the PowerPoint portion. Now I'm going to get into the, yeah.
Can you touch on the photo file format, what formatting is compressed versus what format's not compressed?
Yeah, so the non-compressed formats, those are your raw images. They're just going to be a larger, more detailed photograph in terms of pixel size and stuff like that. JPEGs are typically compressed compressed images, so they just don't contain as much data. So for when you're doing comparison quality images, you want to have as much data as possible, and so that's your RAW or TIFF. On your phones, it's easier on Samsungs, I believe. Yeah, Apple, you can, I think on Samsungs, as far as I don't have a work Samsung, but as far as I understand with Samsungs, you can manipulate the f-stop, the shutter speed, and all that stuff under the Pro option in your camera, and that's also where you can manipulate the, whether you want the photograph to be in RAW or JPEG format. Apple, you have to download a specific app and do some manipulation that way to be able to change those settings, and it's not as user-friendly or as helpful as the Samsung phone. Yeah.
So one of the things that I find the hardest in like art house photographs is like border houses. Like obviously you can't do like a corner to corner type thing. So what are your like best advice in getting like a border house with as much stuff in less space as possible?
So I can actually pull up a case presentation where there's no dead body. There's some blood, but I can show that to you. That's an example of a hoarder situation and how I manipulate my photographs. Let me just get my hard drive real quick. All right, so this is going to be a quick and dirty. If you've got nowhere to go in your room or your house, wherever you are, just how you can overlap your photographs and try to get the best you can, the photographs the best you can. I was called to this scene. I was called because a sister found her brother in the backyard. This is his shed where he lived on her property, and she called because he was unresponsive. He was pronounced deceased, and before I got there, he was transported. So the only story I had was that he was pronounced deceased. We don't know how. We don't know if he was strangled, stabbed, shot, whatever. So I'm kind of going in blind here. But these are just, I'm not showing you every single photograph that I took this night. It's just to give you a representation of your overall mid-range close-up with and without markers. So can anybody see anything that matches from this photograph to that one? So this one to this one. So there's a ton of overlap in there. So when you're looking at this image compared to this one, do you know where I'm pointing my camera? Yeah, so that's what you want to do if you have to break up your sections. If you can't get into a specific corner, that's what you'll do. So over here, this was such a cramped shed that there wasn't a corner-to-corner approach. It was pretty much I had to stand in the middle of the shed and turn around. So here I am inside the shed looking towards the left corner, trying to get that corner as best I can. So can you see stuff from this image to that one? So another example of just overlapping your items within one photograph to the next, so you can tell that I'm looking up and then slightly down. So the hat in this image is at the bottom of the frame here and at the top here. So you know that all I'm simply doing is moving my camera down. And additionally here, you can see the bottom, the blanket at the bottom there in this image. It's now kind of in the center of the image here. Then after I've identified all my items of evidence, I've already done my mid-range and close-ups of my items of evidence. So this is, like I said, I'm not showing you every single photo. That would take forever. I have laid all of my placards down. And this is a really good example of an overall photograph that I want you guys to get when you have identified everything that you're going to need to collect or everything that you need to document in your scene, whether you collect it or not. But there is one thing missing in this photograph. Does anybody know?
The dead body.
Well, yeah. Anything else? Marker 3, yeah, you can't see it. And so because of that, I'm going to have to take another overall photograph showing where marker 3 is in that shed. Here's what I mean about a mid-range photograph showing your fixed reference point. So those glasses in relation to, oh, I shouldn't step away. The glasses in relation to the frame of the shed is what I'm trying to show spatial relationship for. And then a close-up. And you do that for each and every item that you find, and as you're digging through things, stuff like that. So can you see marker 3 now? Yeah, so that this is another overall, making sure that the viewer can see marker 3, and that I haven't just forgotten about it. So the story about this one is we go to autopsy, we ask the police department to hold the scene, because like I said, we didn't know if this guy was shot or stabbed or anything like that, so there could be potentially more evidence in that shed. We go to autopsy. He was shot, and can anyone guess what my next question would be if he was shot? Self-inflicted is good, yeah. I want to know if that bullet is still in his body. So if it's not, I need to go find it. And in this case, the bullet exited. So that means if the incident occurred in the shed, the bullet is likely in that shed. So we go back the next day. Obviously, it has snowed a little bit. We had started removing items from the shed. And this is what we would do in any sort of hoarder house or any crime scene in general. When I am moving items within a room or something like that, I try to use a layering approach. So you take out the stuff in the shed that's closest to the front, we start there. Then we photograph everything we're taking out, and we just keep going layer by layer until we get into the shed. So we end up finding the bullet back here. And the moral of this story is not to pay your prostitute and counterfeit money, because her pimp will come back and kill you. So. Any other questions related to photography? Yep. You can do that if that's how you have to do it, if you only have markers 1 through 4. Typically, what I would try to do is I would do markers 1 through 4 in one room, markers 5 through 8 in a different room. But if you're limited with the number of markers you have, what I would recommend is labeling your room. So it could be master bedroom marker 1 through 4, and then master bathroom marker 1, master through marker 4, if that makes sense. Okay. Yep. Oh.
I have is lining up. Thank you. One of the difficulties I have is lining up where I'm looking, what I'm taking a digital reading for, using like a laser thermometer, and then kind of putting my camera in between both. Are there recommendations or additional photos that you would recommend when we're trying to line up a line of sight with a digital reading?
So basically what you're saying is you're holding a thermometer out, trying to get the reading inside the car, and you want your camera to show what you're pointing at,
Yes.
as well as a thermometer. Are you guys always by yourself?
In our
Yeah, I get that. I would just do the best you can prior to taking the reading. Get a photograph, an overall photograph of where you're going to be taking the reading. And then if you're taking it from a particular spot in that car, get a close-up of that area. And then do your best to, just like you said, kind of hold the thermometer out and get your photograph that way. Otherwise, I would say have somebody else take the photograph for you. But I totally get having to make it work when you're by yourself.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
So some of the cameras and or some of the phones have like a wide angle mode on there. Is that okay to use?
No. I mean, well, yeah. It is okay. However, if everyone wants to go ahead and open their phone for me, open their camera on their phone. At the bottom of your camera, or of the camera, you should see a 0.5x, 1x, and 2.5x or something like that along those lines. So those are the ways that you're going to zoom with your phone. So oftentimes you see people that are just zooming with their fingers like this, and those pictures typically are super grainy and pixelated. That's because when you use your fingers, you are going into digital zoom, or digital zoom. If you're using just the numbers, so 0.5, 1, 2.5, whatever, if all you're doing is hitting that, you are using your optical zoom on your lens. So that keeps it within a certain standard, so you're not getting anything pixelated. I can show you guys. Oh, no, not the comparison. Should I try to unplug it and plug it back in?
I don't know. Last time it had like a circle. Alt delete. Do you want? No.
You can say yes.
Okay.
I don't care.
I feel like.
And then just reopen it.
Yeah, I think this is what we did last time. Let's see if it works. And then, how the, oh, like this. What the?
That's my kid. At least it's not a dead body.
That's true. That was really funny. Presenter view. What is happening?
I can always download it.
Yeah, I think that's what, is it, let's see. Is this it? No, this is,
The smart device one that's open already.
okay. And how do you download it, like this?
Sure, I think if I...
Oh yeah, okay. And then just as a PowerPoint.
Give me chills.
What is happening? Look, see, it's on there. Courtney, can you grab the IT guy? Can you get the IT guy? IT, help us. No, just go get him. Can you go and get him? Oh, no, here he comes. Oh, maybe I did it. Oh my God, just kidding, I did it. I'm amazing. Oh, is this what you want? Just start here. Sorry.
All right. Good deal.
All right, so I'll show you a little bit about what I mean with the optical and digital zoom. This is what I was talking about, where you have the 0.5, the 1x, the 2, 3, whatever. That is your optical zoom. That is the only zoom that you want to use on your camera when you're taking any sort of crime scene photos. Here's what I mean between the digital and the optical zoom. So the digital, like I said, that's when you're using your fingers and you're going past the optical zoom. You're going to get super pixelated, super grainy, not appropriate crime scene photographs. If you stick with the optical zoom, you'll get a better image. And over here. The one thing that we have noticed with using your cell phone on a crime scene, you don't ever want to use it in portrait mode because that is putting your foreground in focus and your background blurred. You always, for crime scene purposes, you want everything in focus. So don't ever use portrait. That's more for, fancy, artsy photographs that you want to take. This is the Pro mode on the Samsung. That's where you can start changing your shutter speed, your ISO, and things like that, similar to a DSLR. Here's where you can change your image quality format within your cell phone. So on a DSLR, you have to go into the settings and change your image size to a RAW or TIFF. This is how you would do it on a cell phone. Like I said, the uncompressed file formats, that's what you want for doing any sort of stuff that requires a scale or is needed for examination quality. High dynamic range. So I had a good question yesterday from a student. Basically, high dynamic range is your phone is metering for you. So when you're taking photographs on a DSLR, you either have to open up or add to your exposure or close down on your exposure. So if you'll take one photograph and you're like, man, that's a little bit too dark, I need to add more light. So you're going to meter +1. And the opposite is for if it's too dark or if it's too light, you need to close down. So basically, your phone does that for you. It meters the image and takes 3 different images. So that's what high dynamic range is. So on the left, it's taking a darker image. In the center, it's taking a lighter image. But the image that you are actually seeing on your phone is the one on the right. So it is basically photoshopping your photograph for you. And so somebody asked me yesterday if in court that became a problem because I was photographing with my phone. And the short answer is I have not had to testify to any of my photographs that I've taken with my phone because, like I mentioned before, we want the photograph to show an accurate representation of the scene. And with using high dynamic range, it's technically photoshopping, for lack of a better way to say it, your image for you. So that is altering the image. To give you the best looking image. So unfortunately, I don't have any personal experience or any knowledge from anyone else that has testified to anything like that on whether or not defense attorneys or anyone like that is going to hammer you for that. My gut feeling is no, because the photograph is still depicting the scene as you saw it that day. So that is that. Any other questions? Yeah. Do you use a DSLR or your phone? Okay, I'll tell you, for your DSLR, you're gonna want to meter the palm of your hand. So basically point your camera lens at the palm of your hand in the sun. And it basically is a way to let the light meter. So you'll meter on your hand to see what the proper settings would be, where you should put your f-stop and stuff like that, and then that should give you your or your middle ground photograph. If that one is too dark, I would then either open up your f-stop or increase your ISO. For your digital or for your phone, I would recommend using your flash if it's during the day. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but that is the best way to illuminate the dark area during daylight. If it is at night, though, I would recommend using a flashlight or some other flash elsewhere. Yep.
One of the tricks that I picked up while inspecting vehicles with heavy tinted windows is placing my cell phone and activating the camera with it directly against the glass, and it just pierces straight through that tinting like it wasn't there.
Yep.
Is there any legal complications with taking photos using that method?
Nope, it's actually something that I recommend and that I've done on crime scenes. When I can't get into cars, say like a certain door is locked or I just can't get into it, but I need an image of the opposite side. I will literally, the same thing you're doing, I will put my lens right up on that window and shoot through the glass. And that's a good technique to do if for any type of glass that you're trying to photograph through. If you step too far back, you're going to get the reflection of either yourself, the flash, the camera, whatever. If you put the lens literally right on the glass, you can shoot through the glass. And so I would actually just recommend it.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? All right, I'm going to do the case presentation for the animal abuse case I worked. There's my kid again. All right, so this is a couple years ago. I was called because animals were outside at this guy's house. He had, they were reports that he was abusing them and that they had no access to shelter, food, or water. And so I was called to help document the scene. We then had a veterinarian arrive on scene to help us basically point out where the animal's injuries were and stuff like that, because I'm not going to know. I mean, I can look if an animal has an injury, I know what I'm looking at, but I don't know exactly what is important to document in terms of abuse or just, generic that the dog scraped its paw on something. So it is really important to have those experts there with you to help you document. Again, in this, I do not show you everything. Or every photograph that I took. I took over 500, so it would take forever. I just kind of give you an example of what to do. And there are no deceased animals here. They're all alive. I guess that's my warning for this one. So here's the house. With any house or any crime scene that you're doing, you always want to get an address indicator. That's just so your viewer can go back to the scene and they can tell exactly which house you went to. If for whatever reason they have to go back 5-10 years down the road and that house is still there. So in this case, the 129, that's my address indicator there. And then I'm going to walk my way into the house. So I walk towards the front door. I show as much as that front patio as I can. And then show the door that I'm going to be walking through. Open that door, and you can see that the image is pretty dark. I probably should have stopped and taken another one before moving on. Now I am actually in the house. The front door is right behind me. And so here's where I'm going to start doing my corner-to-corner approach. Another helpful example, if you are in a hoarder house and you can't do a corner-to-corner approach, you can stand in the middle of, I'll just stand over here. So here I am going around. They had birds, a snake, and some sort of fish. I can't remember what the fish were. But all those, and cats. Those were all animals that were staying inside, though. So here I am going around. Behind this tank here, this is where the snake was. And up on top, he had illegal animal remains up there. I don't know if you can see them in the foot. It's basically here on the right-hand side of the image by that like white and black and red dot thing. I believe it was an owl or something. There was an owl and something else that he had that he should not have had. So I'm documenting the condition of the house, basically. This is all I'm doing with my overalls. That's all that I do in the beginning of my crime scene processing. I'm not searching through anything yet. I'm not touching anything yet. I'm simply walking through, snapping photos. And I'm gonna go around each room, and like I said, don't show you all the photographs because it would take forever, but I go to each bedroom in this house. I go to the bathroom, I go to the kitchen, and then I work my way outside to where these dogs are located. And if there is of anything, so when the vet arrived on scene and was examining the dogs, she wanted to make sure that we had documented the food that was available for the dogs and where any of that food was located and stuff. So that's something that I'm going to start looking in the kitchen cabinets. I'm going to start looking for random bags just strewn about. So you can see like there's cat food on the left there. Right behind this wooden bench was where the dog food was. So documenting all of that is just as important to show if they have food, if they have access to the food, if the food is moldy, all that kind of stuff. So I'm walking through towards this back door here, and this is where all the dogs are located. So the dogs, I believe we had about 8 pens. We had 1 dog per pen with the exception of 1 pen that had 2 dogs. They were all super friendly. I was super excited. I'm an animal lover, so I was super excited that they were friendly. But I'm going to use the same approach for regular crime scene, regular processing of houses. I'm going to go through overall photographs as best I can before I can get to any sort of evidentiary stuff. So I'm taking overall photographs of the pens. I'm not really focusing on the dogs right now. I'm just focusing on the layout of that backyard and the construction of the pens. And I go around through each, and then I'm documenting. We wanted to know if the dogs had access to water or food. And so they had water bowls. Most of the water bowls weren't filled or were frozen, or were tipped over or something like that. And I did not see any signs of food bowls in their little pens. And then I start to focus on the dog that's in that specific pen. But I told you earlier that you can label your rooms. So if you're just staring at this generic photo, you're not going to know which pen I'm looking at unless you are looking at it in sequence. So that's why we would label the pens, and that's essentially what we do later. But I'm continuing on pen by pen, documenting if they have access to food, water, if they're tied up. One of the dogs had a super heavy chain on, and a couple of the other dogs, I think were beginning to have frostbite on their paws. So again, just documenting everything that could potentially aid in the investigation. And here's the water that's frozen. They did have some sort of shelter at times. This is the doggie that has the heavy chain around its neck. She was still able to jump up, surprisingly. It probably just made her stronger. But these are all going to be considered overalls and mid-ranges and close-ups of the water bowls. So I move around to the other pens, showing each dog and what they're living with. I mean, this was kind of like shoddily constructed. This was not the best place, obviously not the best place for these dogs to be. So after that, we continue down the line. I believe that there were 9 dogs, I believe, in the house, or in this backyard. And their little houses weren't super, they didn't look comfy. I'll leave it at that. This dog was chained and the other one was not. And then we had an escape artist dog coming up here. So this is the pen I was talking about that had the 2 dogs. And had there been any active injuries or obvious injuries to the dogs, I would have used my scale that I mentioned, that ABFO, that small little L scale, to photograph the injuries that I observed on the animals. And obviously that is very difficult on a moving object. So if you're using your DSLR, this is where increasing your shutter speed is going to be important, because increasing your shutter speed stops motion. So if you're going to be increasing your shutter speed, it means you have to open up your f-stop or increase your ISO to allow more light into the camera. So that's just one thing to keep in mind, because dogs are, when humans are alive and you're trying to take pictures of them, it's pretty difficult, but dogs don't understand what you're doing when you have a flash in their face either. I'm sure you all know that. So this guy's water was overturned, and it had snowed. They just lived out here according. So here's where I'm labeling all the pens. So pen 1, this is the one right when you walked into the back door, walked out the back door. And I'm going to get a close-up of the pen, and then I'm going to get to the dog. Pen 2, and the close-up of the identifier. So this is essentially what I did in the front of the house when I'm showing the whole house and then the address indicator. It's similar process, just showing what we're labeling each pen as. So pen 2 is the dog with the heavy chain. Pen 3, this dog. Pen 4 is that doggy. And I was trying to photograph as best I could as the dogs were moving as well, just to show if there was anything that we could see as they were coming out of the pens. Pen 5 with both of those guys. Pen 6 and 7. This is our escape artist. He was my favorite. So I'm surprised that he hadn't gotten out yet by the time we got there. So then, after I've documented the scene, and we're starting to take the dogs out, this is when the vet come and any sort of veterinary personnel becomes very important, because, like I said, I'm not a vet. I don't know what I'm looking at other than a dog that I want to cuddle, and I want to make sure is okay. So I'm going to rely on them to show me what is important to be documented. And I will do my best to document it as best as I can. And if I need to take multiple photographs, I will do my best. And then all of that stuff can be given to your vet on scene. You can just give them an SD card, or you can email them photographs later when you're back at the office. So as they're taking the dogs out, it's the same thing with the car, the same thing with the house. I'm gonna do my best to try to get overalls of the dogs. And these dogs were wiggly. They were so excited to be within human contact that it was very difficult to get all around the dogs. So you do the best you can. And when you're taking photographs of a body, I don't know how often you guys would do that, but I always try to get a face ID, and that's just to show just a close-up of the face, just showing what that person looked like. The same concept goes for the animals. So I'm going to try to get a close-up of their face, just showing so you can distinguish between which dogs I'm looking at. And then I mentioned the collars and stuff like that. So you want to do your best to get photographs of anything that can differentiate this dog from the next dog you're going to look at, because all these dogs are brown. And you just continue on taking the photographs. I got lucky that none of these dogs had wounds on them. I think the only thing was a mild, beginning of frostbite to some of the paw pads. So you just, and it's pretty, like I said, the dogs are wiggly. Normally I'm used to dead people, so that they're much easier to photograph. This is a little challenging for me. But the other thing too is just getting photographs of their general condition, whether they're malnourished or not. And typically, we had the vet, she was feeling on the dogs as we went through this whole process and trying to point out things if we needed to photograph it. I was really thankful that for this case, the dogs were relatively unharmed. So another doggy. This was the one that had the heavy chain. And you can see she's got a little growth on her eye. I did end up photographing that a little closer. I know that that is not abuse related, but it is an anomaly on the dog. So it'd be like taking a picture of a tattoo on a human. Just wanting to use that as another way of identification. They're so friendly. We did take all dogs. So they took them to the shelter. I believe they kept the dogs. I never get the outcomes of the stories, and that's what is really hard about my job, is I do the scene, and then I never hear anything until it goes to court, if it goes to court. But I do know that the dogs were removed. He had to make changes to his house in order to their shelters in order to be able to bring the dogs back to his home. There were reports, I forgot to mention this, there were reports of dog fighting, which was what we were most concerned with upon entering the house originally, was that we were going to find deceased dogs everywhere, severely injured dogs, and it didn't appear like any of these dogs had been involved in anything like that. So I was very thankful. A little treat for him. If you are trying to take photographs of injuries to a dog, or, well, I'll just say a dog just because of the photograph here. Say the dog had an injury to its paw. It would be super beneficial if you had other people with you. I know that's not always the case, but having somebody to hold the paw still so that you can just quickly snap your photographs with a scale, without the scale, is going to be easiest. The other way that you could do it is when the dog is sedated, if they're getting treatment and stuff like that, doing it then, obviously that makes the most sense. So then they're not in pain, you're not hurting them, you can get as many photographs, you can take as many photographs as you need, you can retake photographs if you need to. But that is basically everything I have. In terms of collection, do you guys have any questions on what happens when you need to collect items at a scene? Anything specifically? I don't know how often you guys will collect items for DNA or anything like that, so I didn't know if I should speak on that at all.
No more questions? No.
Okay.
Thank you, Meg.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one of the cases I worked.
Really? Yeah.
All right, before everybody